Angie says, here's the question. So this is the question we've all been waiting for, at least I have been. Angie says, how can we be charitable and caring for our fellow human, men and women, without putting ourselves in danger of being taken advantage of or putting ourselves at risk? A strange man walking in the pouring rain. Okay, it's a great question. Number one, we are called to love throughout the course of our life, which means we have to be here for it, which means we have to avoid situations that would end up causing us a barrier in the future. So, in a dangerous situation, a physically dangerous situation, emotionally, mentally, spiritual, dangerous situation, you don't. Okay, when you're alone, you don't. What you do is you try to figure out, how can I help? How can I make the situation not dangerous? That becomes the question, because that technique will get used again later on. So we are called to love. We are not called, and we are called to sacrifice, but we are not called to do so foolishly. We're called to use our brain. We're called to use our reason. We're called to be discerning. That isn't to say I'm going to judge someone. I'm not going to say, oh, well, this person is the dangerous sort. No, that would be judging them. I'm not going to do that. I'm saying I'm not going to put myself in a situation because it may be a dangerous situation. Whether it's, the creepy looking guy in a raincoat standing outside underneath a streetlight, holding a stick, right? It's about the situation as opposed to just the people that are present. So one of the things in our church, for example, when we have events going on with kids, no person is ever left alone with children. We always have at least 2 people together. We follow a guideline that we call Safer Church. It's to ensure that everybody is always safe. Okay, as safe as possible. We do everything that we can to make it as safe as possible. So to answer your question, you think about the strange man walking in the rain in a trench coat underneath the streetlight. I'm just thinking about, those horror movies where you see the guy standing there. But the bottom line is, the first question is, how can I do this in the safest possible way? Not only for myself, but for them as well. I think that's an honest, a sincere, and it's a really, really good question for Christians to be asking. I'm going to help, but what is the safest way that I can help? Recently, you've heard people talk about Charlie's Mission. So my son Charlie goes to the IWK. The IWK is a children's hospital here. He has juvenile arthritis. Goes to a children's hospital here in Halifax. Across the street from the hospital, in this grassy, parky boulevard, there's a bunch of tents. We have a large homeless population in Halifax. And Charlie, God bless him, he has such a compassionate heart. He has such an amazing heart that he wants to help people when he has sympathy for them. He wants to make the world a better place, and I love that about him. So we talked to some folks, and we talked around, and we looked around, and we figured out what we can do. Now, we were planning on doing something right down there in that space. We can't, though. It's not going to be feasible for us to do that. So instead, what we've done is we're working with a neighboring parish, another Anglican parish here in town called St. George's Round Church. Lovely group of people. I was a student there as a minister. They do amazing work. They have a weekly supper. They put on a weekly supper for anybody who needs it. Anybody who wants to show up, you can come and you can eat. And it's a hot meal, except during COVID, it's always a hot meal. You can sit down and eat. You can take it out. You can take it home. You can take it to a park, wherever you want. You have your choice, but they always provide a great meal. We've contacted them and said, we want to help you do this by taking 1 week a month from you. We'll handle it for 1 week a month. The reason we're doing this is for safety. It's what it boils down to. The reason we're doing this is for everybody's safety. We want to help. We are going to help, but we need to make sure we're doing this in the safest possible way so that we can help again tomorrow. Okay, so we use our brain because we're called to help, we're called to love, we're called to give. And we're called to do it for a long time. Right? If you can, you're called to do it for a long time. And so what's the safest possible way for us to be able to help again tomorrow? What we do today needs to reflect what we'll do tomorrow. So How can you be charitable and caring to our fellow human without putting ourselves in danger of being taken advantage of? Now, that part, that's a little different for me than the idea of being in danger. Okay? And the reason is there's always going to be someone out there who is going to take advantage of your love. There's always going to be someone out there who's going to take advantage of your charity, take advantage of your time, take advantage of your gifts. Always. Always, always, always. That's okay. My outlook on that is this. They're only taking advantage of me if I have an expectation, if I have a different expectation, right? They're only taking advantage of me if I believe they are taking advantage of me. In ministry, I encounter all kinds of people. And, I remember being in situations where people were pulling up to a food bank in vehicles like 10 years newer than mine. And you feel it, right? It's like, oh, what? How is this possible? They must be, and you start making all these judgments about that person and what they're doing and what they're like. They're driving, da, 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 da. You see it. You know what? Here's one for you. A friend of mine, his name's Rob Fennell, teaches at the Atlantic School of Theology. He's a wonderful guy, United Church minister here, author. You can find his books on Amazon. He's a really just genuinely lovely guy. He and I were having a conversation one time. We were talking with a homeless, again, it was the panhandlers in Halifax, and I was sharing with him a situation similar to what you're asking, actually, now that I think about it. In one of my placements, a church that I was placed in when I was a student, I had a person come up to me and said, I never give to the panhandlers because they're just going to use it to get drunk, right? So they thought by giving them money, if that person goes and drinks, then they're just taking advantage of my generosity. They're misusing my generosity. They should be doing something better with what I give them. And Rob's response to me was, well, why do they think only rich people get to get drunk? Right? That person who maybe you give them the money and they go to the liquor store and they get themselves something. That is their way of dealing with their life at that moment. They may need it. It might be the worst thing they can possibly do. It might be, but it's their way right now. And once I've given them that gift, it's not mine to decide how they use the gift. So the way I guess what I'm coming down to is how I deal with the feeling of being taken advantage of is I remember once I've given somebody something, it's not up to me. It's up to them how they use it. And I'm only going to feel taken advantage of if I let myself feel like somebody's taking advantage of me. And if I give a gift, if I truly give something away, it's not mine. So you can't take advantage of me. I would have done that for anybody. I would have given that to anybody. I would have offered that to anybody. I would have provided that for anybody. I don't care what you do with it. You want to come back again and try to take advantage? I don't care. I mean, you're going to deal with people in the world today. You're going to deal with people who are going to be incredibly manipulative. They've grown up learning that in order to get the help they need, they've got to be manipulative. Okay, you can approach me in any way you like. But I'm only going to feel manipulated if I allow myself to feel manipulated. Anyhow, I hope I'm answering your question. The bottom line, I think, comes down to, protect yourself because sometimes without putting ourselves in danger of being taken advantage of. You're only ever going to be taken advantage of if you believe you've been taken advantage of. Give with a giving heart. Share with a grateful heart. You'll never feel taken advantage of. I promise you. If you're giving for all the right reasons, you'll never feel like you're being taken advantage of. As for the real physical riskiness of providing help, again, no one should put themselves at risk. No one should put themselves in physical risk, in spiritual, mental, emotional risk. The question is, we recognize, number one, I'm going to help. These people need help. I'm going to help. The question we ask immediately after that is, how can I do it in the safest possible way so that I can do it again tomorrow? Amen.